Life is sweet. Let it sweep you off your feet.
Hi, this is Ali and Find Your Joy. Please remember to like and subscribe. Today well, first of all, welcome. We have Sue Phillips with us. Sue is a critical illness and end of life doula. She's going to tell us all about that. We have our imagination of what that might look like. And today we're going to have someone who's going to share very much her experience, what she does, and how that looks for people and their families facing critical illness and end of life. So, welcome, Sue. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thanks, Ellie. I'm happy to be here and share the space with you today. Thanks for allowing us to explore.
Yes, I love that word, explore, because I think, you know what? I'm going to say this. I think most people, we don't even like to think about death.
Yes.
And so to think about end of life and being around and how that might look, it can bring up our own fears about what happens next. Does anything happen next? What's it going to be like? And I'm guessing that that's your gig. Your gig is to help people figure that out for themselves.
Yes. Yeah. I help
Wow.
people explore their own feelings and fears,
Right.
and to find a way to, maybe share that, it's not as scary as it needs. Yes, it's sad.
Yeah.
Yes, it can be scary, all of it. It can be painful. Death can be painful. Illness can be painful. There are so many things, but my tagline, if you will, is the end of life deserves as much beauty, care, and respect as the beginning. So, we spend a lot of time when a baby is coming, we're excited and there's gifts and there's stories and, picking a name and the whole thing. But we avoid the conversation. We avoid asking our loved ones, what their real feelings are. We avoid talking about our legacy. What do we want to leave for our loved ones, aside from a monetary one, of course. So, that's one of the most joyous parts of what I do is bring people together to explore, to have people be able to ask questions, not be afraid of the scary answers, but also to embrace the beauty that can come with those final. It could be months, it could be years, it could be moments, but there's beauty in that as well.
Mhm. I think, and I think for anyone I can remember how afraid I was of just death in general. And then, like anyone, sometimes it's all different stages and ages of life where we get to experience that. And I remember the first time walking through with someone that I loved a terminal diagnosis till the end. And then, and then there's another, and then another. And then all of a sudden, you're you find that you've sat with people who are in death and dying for several events now, and all of a sudden, what I thought was the most scary thing wasn't the most scary thing anymore. Like it was interesting, and my training was just the experience of it. So, you, my understanding now, do you actually train other people to become doulas as well? Like, is that
No,
part of what you do?
that's not what I do. I work
Okay,
with individuals
okay,
in their journey and their families.
okay.
So certainly, the other piece of what I do is an example would be the other night I presented to a small group of caregivers. So people who are looking after their loved ones who are in long-term care, and it was caring for the caregiver.
Mm.
So it was a way to honor and acknowledge what they're doing and how they can best look after themselves so they're able to care for their loved ones. We know that our caregivers are struggling greatly because there's uh, little resources for caregivers. And, it's not to point fingers. We just know there are gaps in our many different systems across the country. Definitely not to point fingers, as I say, but just to say that there are simply that gaps. And,
Right.
um, doulas can fill those gaps emotionally and practically. So, I come to the table with that group and we talk about strategies to help in the moment when they're feeling overwhelmed, and maybe some long-term strategies, and offer some resources, things like that. So I'm very, very much into doing exactly this, what we're doing today, which is podcasts. I've spoken with many different people on podcasts, magazine articles, that kind of thing, because the more we get the information out there and what an end of life doula can offer, the better we are. We need to get it out there. And my hope is also to encourage people to think about their emotional needs. We tend to be very practical, and depending on our age, of course. Baby boomers, though, are, it's time now. Baby boomers are dying now, and are more open to exploring alternatives and different ways of looking at things. So that's my hope, is to encourage people to think about what's really important to me beyond the will, beyond all the legal stuff. Let me
Right.
look at, how do I want to say goodbye to? Do I want to have a living celebration of life? Do I want to have a green
Mm.
burial? Do I want that orange blanket that my mother gave to me when I was a little kid? Do I want that, at my bedside when I'm, in my final moments? So those are the things I really hope to encourage people to think about. Definitely offer lots of practical advice through Zoom sessions, online sessions. I do storytelling events online where we come together and tell our stories. Communal healing in that space is incredible. So, yeah, I'm very much into that emotional support, and also the practical, right? So, yeah,
Right. So I'm not really sure how this all looks, having someone wants to so if someone right now is listening
yeah,
and either they or someone they care for has just received a terminal diagnosis and they're not really sure. I mean, it's a funny thing. I find death and dying is sometimes families rally and they become the absolute best version of themselves. It's
uh,
just I we had that experience with my dad, and it was beautiful. I don't know how else to say that. It was hard and it was sad and it was funny and it was glorious and it was absolutely wonderful. And not everyone has that experience, and not everyone knows even how to. Sometimes families have been displaced, and there's been breakdown, and now there's this situation. And I always say just the hardest thing to process for me, that's just my thing. The hardest thing to process I find in any death is regret. So if you can do whatever you can to not have that, then you're all the other things are going to happen anyways.
yes,
But if
yeah,
you cannot have that, then I promise you it will make the grief and the going forward less difficult.
absolutely. Absolutely, Ali. I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
If I could, so if someone contacts me,
Right.
oftentimes I may be contacted by a son, a daughter, a sibling of someone who is coming to the end. Firstly, I want to say this. I really want to encourage people to consider preparing for this human experience
Right.
long before a crisis occurs. So that means sit
Mm.
with yourself with you as you are today, and do an advanced care plan, and then every year update it. Life cycles, right? Divorce, job loss, accidents, like all kinds of things. Just keep that living document so that it is always there. It is an actual document. Inform your loved ones that it exists. Of course, have your legal stuff. Same thing with your legal stuff. You know,
Yes.
have your legal paperwork ready, done. Okay, it's done. Don't just lock it away and think that's it, it's done. Always review it. I People make fun of me because I say review your death plan on your birthday.
That's a
But
great idea.
it is because, like just review life. It's your birthday. Where are you at? Have you had some critical changes in your life? And consider what that means with all your paperwork. Inform the people who may need to speak on your behalf of changes as you go along, but try to do it when you're not in crisis. Uh, you make the best decisions for yourself then, right? But of course, that's hard to do. As you say, it's hard for people to get their head around thinking about it and talking about it. That's another thing that I do is try to bring people together to say, okay, let's look at some of the primary areas of an advanced care plan, right? And we talk about comfort for body, mind, and soul, throughout that period. So somebody contacts me now and says, my mother has just been diagnosed with dementia,
Hmm.
um, and she's going to be in long-term care. And I can't go every day, so I want someone to visit her. That's simply that's sounds like a simple thing that I'm going to do, and it is. I go, I sit with this person. A client right now that I have is 83 years old. She has dementia. She's recently moved into long-term care. I go as a compassionate companion. And and every week I go and I reintroduce myself because she
Yes.
does have dementia. But also, I have somebody who says my husband who has been diagnosed with glioblastoma, and he's got a year left. And so now I'm going to go every week, or whatever they deem is what they need, right? We meet, we talk about what the needs are, and we create a plan. And I am not there to lead you. I'm not there to push you into decisions. I'm walking beside you every step of the way.
Right.
And if I don't have the answers to the questions you have, I'm going to get them for you. If you need an advocate within the healthcare environment, I can do that for you with consent, of course.
Right.
There's certain steps we have to take. Um, if you need me to talk with your loved ones because you can't talk with them about what your needs really are, I'm going to help make that happen. So, caregiver respite, compassionate companioning, advanced care planning, if you want to work on a project of legacy, I'm going to help you figure out what you want to leave to your loved ones. So I have a huge variety of things that I do. Well, huge, but a wide variety.
Right.
Not all doulas do all things. So it's really important that
Okay.
when you're talking with a doula that you um, talk about what you're looking for. And if you don't know what you're looking for, have that lengthy conversation. Um, Discover what you think you need the most in that moment and find out if that doula provides that. For example, advanced care plan. That might be something that I don't do. Maybe I'm more into companioning and respite and that kind of thing. So that's really important. Having that initial meeting, having that discussion right at the beginning to, and I help you explore that. So you may not even know the questions to ask, but I can help you explore, do you have all the information from your doctor? Are you interested in getting information on medically assisted death? Are all of those things? And it might
Right.
be something they didn't even think about, right?
Right.
So, yeah, so in that sense, maybe I am leading a bit by saying here are some things to consider, right? But
And
yeah,
being another voice to talk to about someone, because if I'm considering medical assistance in death, maybe my husband or daughter or son or what, maybe those people are not going to be the people that I'm maybe, are not going to be the people that I'm going to be able to have a conversation that doesn't have a lot of emotion attached to it.
yeah. Yes,
just
exactly.
trying to sort something out, and I'm trying to understand what's the best choice for me and for my family. I'm sure that there's a lot of that taken into consideration too. So so that's an amazing variety of service that you provide. I did not know that a death doula could come in so much before that and provide that kind of incredible care and respite, like you said. That's really lovely.
Yeah,
And 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 I am of the age where I've gone through pretty much everything that you've, like, yeah, did that, yeah, we've
yeah,
done all those things, and I'm thinking, yeah, having someone besides me, and that's the person who tends to be the caregiver of the family, who tends to be the one that's not saying that everyone isn't there for everything, but might be the person who kind of pulls the things together. It would be good for that person to have someone like you, and every person, because maybe I'm just, someone like me is just a control freak, and someone else needs to come in and say, "Hey, back up the truck a bit,"
yeah,
because everyone else wants a part in this too. Like, I'm just guessing all of the things that are possible.
yeah,
It's amazing, and
yeah.
wow.
Yeah, so I had a friend who had friends with their son, who was only 30 years old, was dying of a glioblastoma as well, actually. And so this friend of the family said, "Can you come together with a bunch of us?" And it was all their friends. It wasn't the immediate family, it was their friends
Mhm.
who were struggling with their anticipatory grief of losing this young man, but didn't want to express what they were going through at the thought of losing him. And so it was really difficult. And when they were around the parents, of course, they were really careful about, what they said and how they managed it. So we created a circle of care. We, sat around a table with a glass of wine or a cup of tea or whatever it was, and went around the circle and told stories of him. And that was all they needed. And it was an opportunity to talk about the fears, that they had, and regrets. Like you say, regrets is a big one, right? So I'm sorry that I wasn't around him more when he was first diagnosed, or, I mean, it was just a beautiful, beautiful experience. So, people are open to it. People want to share, communally share, but sometimes we just need that one person who can say, "Okay, let's do it this way." And thank goodness for that friend for saying, "I want to create this opportunity for everyone." And then, knowing me, so, creating that for everyone. So everybody has a piece of it, right? So,
Right. And so, how does so a person, do you, how old school am I? Do you look up in the phone book? So a person right now, let's just say, okay, they're in this situation. You're in Ontario, correct?
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Okay, so you're in Ontario, someone is in Manitoba or Saskatchewan, BC, wherever they might be, and they have just had this, what they feel like is an unthinkable diagnosis for themselves or someone they love. Uh, do you Google death doula? Do you
yeah.
how does that come about?
That certainly is a way to start to look. Again, I want to stress, try finding a doula before you need one,
Yes, yeah.
and
I mean,
connect.
and we want to say that over and
Yes,
over and over,
yes,
because when you're afraid or you're in pain or you're, the way that we think and process and who we might even choose to best to walk this out with.
exactly, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah,
That's really important. So get to know somebody and know whether that is someone you want to work with over potentially a terminal illness that could let. This is not a singular event.
right.
This can go on and on. So yes, definitely Google. I'm happy to say that my website has stood me in good stead over the last 5 years. I've been doing this for almost 6 years now. I started doing it after I retired from another life completely. Never had done anything in healthcare or social services, but I wasn't looking for it, it found me.
Right.
And so my website has brought people to me, and I'm very grateful for that. It's still doing its job. However, we do have two associations that I'm going to recommend, which are the first one is the End of Life Doula Association of Canada, um, based in BC, started in BC in 2017, I believe. I sat on the board as the VP for a couple of years for that organization, purely volunteer organization. It's a networking organization.
Wow.
And then the other one would be the Death Doula Ontario Network. So the Association of Canada, you can look on their website and we have doulas listed all across Canada.
Okay.
So we are a growing organization. It's, a slow growth because we are not standardized, if you will. It's important to note as well that we are a private service. So this is not something that can be covered under a plan
Right.
that you have with an employer. The hope would be that one day that would happen. It is a private service. Many doulas like myself will offer a sliding scale. I do a lot of pro bono work, and I do have paying clients. So, that's also important when you're talking with someone, to explore what that cost might be. Um,
Right.
and I, of course, because it is what I do, I will always want a doula for myself, as I go through this process of living and death. So to me, it's worth it. I'm fortunate enough that I would be able to afford to have a doula, but not everybody can, as I say. So it's important to know whether you have access to someone who does pro bono or a sliding scale at the very least.
Right. And that was going to be my next question, actually, was just wondering, here's, here's another thought. I'm just riffing here. I'm just thinking, so if a person was a doula, a death doula, and they also had another certification that might have them be covered. I don't know. I think that would be worth exploring.
It
I'm a
won't
person
cover
who
the doula work.
it won't cover the doula work.
No, no.
Right. So
And
you can't get that in there. They couldn't have been a social worker and stayed, and then somehow that's covered because of that. So that's an important, you know what, I can't, my previous history as a disability case manager, I'm
uh,
always looking for ways,
yes,
because I dealt with so many people who needed desperately help, and they didn't, and most often my clients did not have the funding. And so I'm always trying to think, okay, what if this, what about that?
yeah,
And so
yeah.
that's a good thing to know right away. So it's not like I'm a physiotherapist and I'm going to do death doula work and we're going to have it be covered because of that. That
No,
is
no,
absolutely not going to happen.
no. And a lot of doulas actually are retired PSWs,
Right.
retired nurses, all of those things. But when you're providing death doula support, you're wearing that death doula hat, and that
And
is it.
it's not going to happen.
And
Okay.
of course, all the skills that you bring to the table from those other, areas are going to help with the work you're doing.
Absolutely.
But yeah, there definitely is a line there.
There's a line. Well,
Yeah.
and so that's great information to know, because if I was listening to this, I know my wheels would already be turning. Okay, but there's got to be a way to. Okay, so there's not a way. There's
Well, and if
there's
somebody
not a
does
way.
find a way, please let me
Yeah,
know.
let us know.
Yeah,
That will be
yeah,
very good information to have. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm a curious sort. I'll be trying to figure out a way, that's for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
So then I would ask, now you said sometimes it's pro bono work, sometimes it's a sliding scale. Is there kind of a generalized fee that, and I'm going to guess too, because you've mentioned quite a few different what am I look services that are
yeah,
provided. So it might be very different to sit as a compassionate companion with someone for an hour than it is to help to plan out um, whatever else is happening in the midst of hospice or home or
yeah.
whatever that might be. So what could a person expect maybe to Is it as different as all the different doulas? Like somebody charges $100 an hour and somebody charges
Yes,
50? You just have to
yes.
see each different person and
Yeah, my hourly rate is $100 an hour. Again, I'm open to all possibilities,
right,
so I would never let that be a barrier to someone. Um, and sometimes the most important piece of what we bring to the table is to help educate and empower your personal circle of care. So, what that means
Mhm.
is I'm going to bring all of what, not all, but a good part of what you need to navigate this journey. It doesn't mean you need that doula there forevermore. Do you know what I mean? So it'd be
Right,
right? So it's not, okay, hire a doula and now you're going to have that doula from now until, death and beyond, because we offer grief and bereavement support. Like, in some ways, I'm also a funeral celebrant and a celebration of life. So it doesn't mean that just because you're hiring a doula today that you're going to be working with that person forever and that you have to budget for that forever. Our hope is
right,
always to make sure to educate and empower everybody around you so that that support can be provided in your own personal circle of care, right? So, maybe I'm going to come in and talk with you and your family once, 10 times, whatever is deemed
right.
necessary. And then maybe, okay, we're good for now. I'm gonna wait, I'll let you know if we need somebody. So it's very fluid, right? It's not,
Yes,
and I don't myself, I don't I have a work agreement, but it's not okay, you've signed this now, we're working together forever. So very flexible, very fluid from my point of view. You can stop the service and supports at any time. I don't invoice for anything that I haven't already provided,
right,
so, and I always talk about all of those things when someone decides that they want to work with me, then I say, okay, here are the things, that we need to talk about. How often do you want me to invoice you if we think it's going to be several, like some people I've supported for a year, and
right.
it's been every week for a while and then a break for a while and that kind of thing. So up and down, right?
I
And
get it. That makes sense. And if you meet with someone, like you said, the best scenario is that someone figures out who might be the person that they want to work with long before there's an issue. So they've met, and then now, however many days, weeks, months, years, decades, whatever in the
yeah,
future, then we hook back up, and then go through things. And I get it. Having anyone who's been through this with their people that they care about knows that I mean, you have one day that you think that person is going to be gone that day. It could be another year or so.
exactly. Yeah,
As they rally and things happen and then it
yeah,
it goes on. So to have someone that is to me, what I would think that it would be that we had met, and then the day comes that nobody wants to come, but there we are, and then that's that same face that shows up, and
yeah,
they help us figure out a few things, and we might not see that person again for months or whatever, and then now a relationship is built.
yeah,
This is how I'm seeing it, and
yeah,
now a relationship, and so now when things are really difficult at at the end or whatever it is, and
yeah,
you need that person again, this is not a stranger to anyone that's walking in that room.
yes, yeah,
We have a relationship. I trust that person. They're coming in, and they're the only person in the room who is somewhat disconnected from it. I'm going to say
yeah,
somewhat because um having provided s- having provided supports like within this realm in my life, and having done things professionally this way, we're never completely disconnected from it. As much as I would like to say I'm completely disconnected, of course I'm not. If for no other reason, you're another human suffering.
exactly.
And
Yeah,
so there
yeah,
is that connection. There's my heart is for you. I get that part, but it would be a person who's not in imminent. grief and lost it, right? There,
Yeah,
as
yeah,
it can be.
yeah.
So I just think, who thought of this brilliant thing? Well, I guess people have been doing death doula for long before there was a name for it.
Exactly. And I was just going to make that point, Ali, that we looked after our loved ones, our sick and dying loved ones in our homes.
Yes.
We had home funerals,
Yes.
held funerals. Children were exposed to death and dying,
Yes.
and the funeral industry came along for many important reasons, but it kind of made it mysterious.
Yeah.
And so we do have that fear. That's what I believe. Why a lot of people are so fearful is because we're not exposed in the same ways that we were, that our previous people
Right.
were exposed, especially for children.
Yeah, our
You know,
culture has really made it all quite neat and tidy, hasn't it?
yes, and
Someone's
very
sick,
phobic.
they go away,
Yeah,
and then you see this fearful child being pulled into a hospice room or a hospital room,
yeah,
and they're like
yeah,
they don't even want to see that person anymore. They're like so freaked out because physical changes happen and it can look scary. And
yeah,
I'm an adult and I'm like, I've gone like just a very short time not seeing someone who's terminally ill and thinking, oh my gosh, I don't even recognize them anymore. It just, it happens.
yeah,
And it can be scary, except for when, do you remember there used to be wakes? The person was in a coffin in your living
yeah,
room and people were drinking around and talking and cheersing and kids were sitting under tables thinking, what the heck's going on? But it was part of the so North American culture has kind of made this all for death and sickness is a
yeah, yeah,
profit, easy for me to
yeah,
say, per
yeah.
profit industry. Uh, And it's had some really good parts of that that's helped people with stuff. And like you said, it's taken away. Like now we don't.
And we can. Well, I'm actually not sure about the West Coast, which I should be, and I'm sure I have the information written somewhere, but
Excuse me.
um, you can hold a home funeral. You
Right.
like here in Ontario, I mean, there are parameters,
Mm.
absolutely. And there are people to advise on every single step of how you do it. Um, and you can hold a funeral in your home. Uh,
With a body?
yes,
Interesting. Okay, I didn't. I do. I am another hat that I wear is in ministry, and I do weddings and funerals and things like that. I've done like been invited into some incredible spaces with people, but I have not been at a person's home
yeah,
when the body was there. Ashes, yes, but so that's
yes,
fascinating.
yeah. You have to have, ice, and I mean, there's all kinds of, things that,
Oh, yes, of
right? So
course.
you have, and you have to understand who can dress the body, who can clean, like
Right,
prepare the body, right? So there's all kinds of details, of course, but it is possible. I don't know anyone personally who's done it myself, but I do know people who help others do it.
right.
Um, so yeah, so many things are possible, but you're right. Just to get back to doula is not a new thing. The
No.
word is actually Greek. It means helper or servant.
Oh,
So yes, it's what we all generations and generations ago, it's what we did for our community, and not just our loved ones, in community. So the
right,
person down the road, and the farmer down there, or whatever it was, we did it. We all did it. So we are getting back to doing it in that way, and I don't think we ever lost it. It's just, and there was another point I wanted to make as well about how much time somebody might spend with a doula. Our goal as well is not to be present at that moment of death, the active dying period.
right.
That also is not, the goal, if you will. I mean, if I am invited to be in that space with someone, I am honored. It's a
Mm-hmm.
privilege.
Mm-hmm.
And but that is not my goal as I am supporting you towards that end. I'm there to help you be ready to comfort and care for that person. Um, so you don't need me there. If you want me there, that's different. So again, that's something that's important. It's all about empowerment, education, that kind of thing. So yeah,
Mm.
I just wanted to make that point. But
Yeah, no, and it's interesting as you're saying this, I'm thinking, right, because I'm thinking in my mind, oh, if whoever the person is dying, that's the person that wants the doula. But not that's not necessarily how that works. The doula,
exactly.
a lot of what the doula is providing is supports and information and
Yeah,
respite or whatever it might be
yeah,
for the caregivers of the person
yeah,
as well. I'm guessing.
yeah.
Is that correct? Both are.
Absolutely. We're there for everybody in that circle, right? Client, and again, that is really what we talk about when we are engaging in the beginning, what is the goal here and who are
Mm,
we supporting? And then we dig in and we say, okay, this person needs this, but that person might need a weekly phone call just to say, how are things?
right.
Right? And do you need to vent for 10 minutes on the phone, or
Mm.
offering that opportunity as well. So there, like I say, it's very fluid. There's a lot of different ways to support, um, and helping somebody plan their celebration of life. That's great. Now I'm starting to talk a lot with people about writing their own obituaries. And
Oh,
yeah, and living celebrations of life are becoming very popular. So having our celebration of life before we're gone, so we can say goodbye to everybody. So there's, that's what I mean about the baby boomers are really looking at alternatives, and they're exploring outside of the norm, the traditional, right? So
right.
yeah, and it's interesting to watch that. Yeah.
That's beautiful. My gosh. Well, what an incredible, I don't know, what an honor. What a service. What a mantle to
Yeah.
wear. Like it's just beautiful.
And to speak to your, that, you talk about joy. When people ask me, "Oh, that's so sad. That must be so hard."
Mm,
It is not. It does not feel like that to me. Yes, it can be sad. Absolutely.
mm,
As we've both said that it's hard, it's sad, it's all of those, it's painful, it's all of the things, heartbreaking. But the flip side of that, for somebody who, like myself, who's working it's heart-centered work. If somebody says, "Oh, thank you so much, for coming today," I mean, it's as simple as, and who nobody really needs a thank you. I'm just using that as an example,
no,
but
yeah, I get it. Yeah.
it's joyous to be helping people through it, and I don't feel like I don't come away from it feeling horrible or my body, and I make sure to pay attention to self-care. And, before I go and meet with a client, I will tell myself, please, allow me to bring the best support I can to this person, or if there's something specific that I know I'm going to be addressing that day, I will focus on that. Excuse me. But I also take a moment to thank that person silently, for allowing me to be doing the work. And self-care is important in the work for sure. I take a lot of naps, and I enjoy my life with my partner and travel and do all kinds of things. So, but I find naps are very helpful to me. And I
Right.
didn't realize that I've always been a napper. But since I've been doing the work, I realized that I am really using it to recover from, being immersed in a particular session that day or whatever it might be.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
but I don't find it. I met someone the other day and she said, "Oh, that must be horrible." No, absolutely no.
Mhm.
But she was meaning it as it would have such an effect on me that I might get sick from it. And
Right.
right? So because we can all be affected that way, can't we? If we're looking after others, if we're a caregiver, we can get burnt out very easily and have our own set of physical and emotional illnesses, right? So that's how she was
Yeah.
looking.
Yeah, I can see that. I think too, I'm just while we're thinking about this, because spent time doing ministry and different things, or I've heard people share things and just as a human on the planet. I think that when we're first around, how do you the first time we're around someone and they're dying or they're facing a terminal illness, you don't know yet if death is imminent, you don't really know, but you're facing something. I think, and you can tell me if your experience is the same. I think the first thing is cut yourself some slack, because sometimes you can be thinking things like, all I'm thinking of is, oh my gosh, I hope I never get that. Like you can, we're humans and we have
Yes.
thoughts, and these are,
Yeah.
or sometimes you're thinking, I wish they would go faster. You don't want them to die,
Yeah.
but you don't, this
Yeah.
is, and I think that when in talking with other people who have been through, you know, a, by now a number of deaths with people, I think it's really important to remember, like, these are all just thoughts that we're having. Nobody wants to watch someone suffer forever. Sometimes your back is sore because you've been sitting in the hospital. Sometimes you're just thinking, I just want to get out of here. Sometimes you're thinking, holy crap, I hope I never go through this. Like,
Yeah.
all of those thoughts are really natural. And I think that having a person, like, this is what, having a person that is outside of your family, because maybe you can't say those thoughts to someone
Yeah.
who's going through that at the same time. Maybe you're sitting there thinking, am I the worst person in the world? No, you're just another human on the planet figuring it out.
Yeah.
And it does hurt your back when you're sitting in
Yes.
the hospital for 12 hours a day
Absolutely.
or something like that.
Absolutely.
And all those things happen. And
Yeah.
I didn't, well, I don't know if I told you this or not. So if I'm repeating myself, I had registered for a death doula course.
Yes.
And then I was in an accident and sustained a brain injury 10 years ago. And so for the first, I mean, I'm doing very well now, but I'm still, whoop, whoop, a little bit at times.
Right.
You lose track of things. But and I don't know who I gave it to. This is funny. I I had the course paid for, and I must have put it out on social media, I don't know. I don't remember this at all. Just that I wasn't, in those early years, the first 3 to 5 years, I was not going to be capable of that. And I put it out there. And what I remember is that someone's mother or mother-in-law, who was an RN, allowed me to gift her the course. I've never met her. I don't, not to my knowledge. Who knows? I might have and not remember, because that's part of it.
Yeah.
Um, but so it was in my heart a long time ago. So I have a place in my heart about this
Nice.
that's
That's
just,
beautiful.
it's such a
Yeah.
beautiful,
Yeah.
Sue, I just, so before we finish up here, is there anything that we didn't cover that you would like to share? Did we miss anything that you're thinking, oh, I really want to tell them this? Or I
You
just
know
want to
what?
make sure you have space for that.
Yeah, we covered a lot. We really covered a
Yeah,
lot.
we
I
did. It was
urge people
awesome.
to just, Google, and things are different in Canada than they are in the US. So if someone is
Okay.
interested in exploring, again, I say Google it, just explore what's happening in Canada around the work. Look at our End of Life Doula Association of Canada. We're going through a revamp of our website right now. Right now, I sit on the communications and media committee for that organization. So we're launching a new website soon. So I'm excited about that. But there are some educational courses listed on that website if people are interested in exploring that. There are a lot of great courses out there. Continuous learning is important. So, I've also done a what's called thanatology a practical approach, which is also the study of death and dying and grief and bereavement. So, I try to network as much as possible. The work is a lot of word of mouth and people like you who give us the opportunity to share what we do. And so I really appreciate the time we've had today to do it.
Well, thank you. I'm honored and yeah, it's just beautiful. I was going to say too, those courses, you don't have to be wanting to be a death doula. You could just take those courses and it might just help you with life. I'm
Exactly.
that way about every course. I've taken so many courses. I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm not going to necessarily become that when I grow up. I just think that it's all that information just helps to whatever. A death doula course
Well,
would help.
sorry to interrupt. I just got
No.
excited about something else I wanted to point out was that our organization has two types of membership. One is registered membership, which means we can be listed, pardon me, we can be listed on the website that is public, and it has some other, bonuses to that. But we also have supporting members. And what that means is you get our newsletter and access to different sessions. For instance, Tuesday night, I'm doing a session online around death cafes and how to run death cafes. And so people do have access. And a lot of people who join as members, supporting members, they're not necessarily on their learning curve of becoming a doula. They might be exploring because they're supporting someone.
Right. I mean, that just makes sense to me.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
but I'm just that person. I might be curious about something and I'll take a course and they're like, "Oh, are you going to be doing that?" No,
yeah.
I'm on this planet for a very finite amount of time. I just want as much information as I can get. I think it helps to function as a human. That's my way of. So I just want to clarify, a death cafe, is that what we spoke of earlier? Like a circle sort of thing, whether it's tea or wine or whatever? Is that
Well, Death Cafe is a very specific, it was first created in Switzerland, and then John Underwood in the UK kind of took it to the next level of Death Cafe. It has a very specific format,
Oh,
but
okay.
yes, you come together, no agenda. It's not a counseling session or support session. It's all about exploring our thoughts and feelings around death.
Okay.
And yes, the idea is tea and coffee, and it's supposed to be a free gathering. Of course, COVID, made sure that we were doing virtual gatherings.
Right.
Personally don't always hold death cafes utilizing that title because there are some responsibilities around using it, minor, but
Right. Right.
you do have to follow their guidelines. So I will create what's called conversation circles, and it may just be a theme. So it could be about body disposition or caregiving dementia, like a variety of things in the field, right? So yeah, so creating opportunities for conversations is really important, and thank goodness for virtual support.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful.
I started my doula, I hung my shingle, so to speak, right at the beginning of COVID. So that was very difficult, and but again, thankfully, my website worked, and I got a couple of people who weren't afraid to, or not weren't afraid, but were comfortable with virtual support because we couldn't
Mhm.
meet in person.
Right. That's a whole other, oh my gosh. I can
Yeah.
just see, we could just go on and on and on here.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm just like, this is just amazing to me. Oh, Sue, thanks so much. So our listeners, if you want to get a hold of Sue, her information will be in the show notes. As she mentioned, there'll also be the information for the Ontario Dealer Association and the Canadian one. If you're listening anywhere around the world, I'm sure that you'll be able to find doula support somewhere. Google is a wonder. If you're
Yes.
listening to me, you have
Yeah.
a computer, so Google
Yeah.
is a wonder. And
I'm at SuePhillips.ca.
Yes, SuePhillips.ca. Ah, wow, this has been great. Thank you. This was beautiful. I'm inspired. I'm gonna
Thank you.
go take my gongs and my singing bowls and want to head up to hospice right now. That sounds
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh. Okay, so thanks so much to our listeners for coming and spending some time with us. This was just such an amazing time for me. I'm blown away by this, Sue. Thank you.
Thank you.
What a gift. And do you remember to like and subscribe? And this is Allie, and find your joy. And we'll see you next time. Take good care. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you found a piece of your joy in this episode, I would love to hear about what came up for you so that we can continue to grow the impact of this show. Thanks again. See you soon. And remember, find your joy.
Life is